Okay, so we're going to do a quick debugging lesson. But first I want to tell you what branches are. So a branch is a concept within Git. A branch is a way of keeping track of a parallel version of the code. Like let's say that you wanted to add new features to the code, but you don't want to break your existing code. A branch is almost like a copy of the existing code that you're modifying, but you're modifying the copy so that you don't screw up the original. So I've made a separate branch. So the main branch is called master, so that's why here it says code making master. Go ahead and open your terminal. Make sure you're inside this project. So if you type pwd, you should be inside wherever your code making is. And if you type git branch, it will list what all the branches are. So here we've got master, but we've got another branch called debugging practice. So type git and then checkout and then debugging practice. Notice how I'm not typing the full words. I just type DEB and then tab and auto-completes. You could do that too. So it says switch to branch debugging practice. So now back inside Eclipse, your Eclipse may or may not update itself, but if it doesn't, you can right click and say refresh. You'll notice that there's a solution now for rotation cipher encrypt. And this is the solution that I typed, and it's got some bugs in it. So instead of actually looking and trying to figure out what the bugs are, I want to show you a debugging technique. So let's go to the tester. Right now, let's just observe what the tester's got. So I've got plain text, and then I'm running my rotation cipher with a shift value of 3, and then it's printing out what's the plain and what's the cipher. So when I run it, I've got Nemo's pants are on fire, and that looks like it encrypts as GHIJK. So that doesn't really look right. So let's do the debugging. Here in Cypher, what I'd like you to do is, near the top of the method, where the line numbers are, you're going to right-click, or on a Mac, control-click, and say toggle breakpoint. What a breakpoint will do is it will pause the execution of the code so that you can inspect all the variables. You can see what's inside them, and then you can run the code one line at a time. Instead of clicking run tester, you're going to debug tester. So you're going to click the debug. It's asking, do you want to launch a debugging perspective, which refers to how the windows are organized? And the answer is yes. All right, so it's running, and now you see this green highlighting means that it is paused right at my breakpoint. And up here where you see variables, you can see the value of all the variables. So my plain text variable, you can see it here. My shift amount variable, you can see it. The alphabet, you can see it. And right now the output variable looks like this, and it's empty. So the way that you're going to do this is you're going to hit this arrow that looks like it's jumping over something called step over. So I'm going to click it once. And now I'm going to click it one more time. So now that I've run line 29, I should have created my A variable, and we can see what's inside it. So I'm going to kind of drag this down a little bit so I can see what's going on. So already I see something that's unexpected. My I value is 0, that's right, but my A value looks like it's my entire alphabet. So what that tells me is that something's gone wrong right on this line 29. If you look up the definition for substring, I think you can tell what that's going to be. Let's run a couple more lines. So I'm going to click step over, and now under IND, it says IND is 0. I wonder why that would be. Okay, that makes sense. So if A was the entire alphabet, and I'm looking for the index of that inside the alphabet, that's going to give me 0 because kind of that's where it starts, so that makes sense. And now I'm going to step over, and I see IND has changed now. That's why it's in yellow. Now it's 3, so it was 0, and I added the shift amount of 3. That makes sense. And now I click it again, and it's given me the result, which looks like, I want my result to be one letter, but it doesn't look like this is giving me one letter. It's giving me all the letters after D. So that's the concept. Instead of putting in print statements, sometimes it's a little bit easier just to set a breakpoint, and then you can step over it one at a time and see what there is to see. It's also possible to actually run lines of code kind of while it's paused here. So mine doesn't appear to have it, but if you go to Window Show View, where is it? Expressions. So I can add a new expression where I could do something like I could evaluate output.length. And the value is 0. Or if I wanted to have an expression that was alphabet.substring 1, 2, for example. That's going to give me B. And as it's evaluating, it'll evaluate, if I use variables that exist, it will use the values of those variables that exist right now on line 33 as my code is paused. Okay, so try and figure out what are the bugs in this code and go ahead and try and fix it, and that'll be your first assignment. The last thing you should do actually is switch back to the master branch. So you type Git Checkout Master. And here it's actually warning me because I've made some changes in the file, so it's saying your local changes would be overwritten by checkout. Please commit your changes or stash them before you can switch branches. You're not going to commit them, so you can just type git stash, and now you can type Git Checkout Master. And now you're in master, and when you go back here, is it going to update? Yeah. So now rotation cipher encrypt is back empty again, and you can type in your own solution.